ARE Podcast, Season 1, Episode 5.
Welcome to the ARE Podcast. Where it's all about encouraging and inspiring you today so you can fulfill your dream of becoming a licensed architect tomorrow. And now your host, David Doucette.
Hello. Welcome to Season 1, Episode 5 of the ARE Podcast. In this episode, we are going to talk all about working with contractors and the top 5 things that you need to know when working with contractors. And as always, I'm joined by my co-host, Eric Corey Freed. Eric, how are you?
I'm great. How are you? Good.
Are things sunny in Portland today?
Sunny is not a word we use a lot in Portland. It's all relative. It's the clouds are glowing brightly. That's the best I can do.
Is it less depressing is not the right word, but is it less gloomy than Seattle?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Seattle has that marine layer that we don't have.
Okay. All right, so we got our top 5 things working with contractors. I guess the first thing here, we'll go through our list, but the first thing just to mention is, and this is what I learned, 20-something years ago back when I started in the business. Contractors seem to get a bad rap, and why is that?
Are you asking me?
Yeah, I'm asking you. It's not rhetorical.
I think they get a bad rap for a number of reasons, but believe it or not, I think one of the main reasons is architects are a little jealous of contractors. That's kind of the vibe I get.
Okay. Yeah, it always seems to be. I just remember from when I had bosses, there was a few contractors they would speak highly of, and they enjoyed the relationship. But on a whole, it seemed like they had more bad things to say about contractors than good things, and we can talk about that as we get into it. So, how do you want to begin here?
So, what I've discovered. Now, first of all, we should say, David, you're not only a licensed architect, you're also a contractor and a real estate agent, a certified scuba instructor, a tango dance teacher. Like, there's a whole bunch of things that you do. But you've sat on both sides of that table, right, as contractor and architect.
I have, and I will tell you, when I did design build for 3 years, I loved doing it. But I also got a taste of what contractors feel like, and we're talking residentially here, but the sort of animosity that can be felt on the contractor side from the owner. And when we're just the architects, we can always basically blame the contractor and always sort of remain the good guy in the relationship, in the eyes of the owner. Mm-hmm. But when I was on that contractor side, obviously I was still the architect, but it was a much harder. It was much harder to stay in a positive light in the owner's point of view, mainly because things just took longer than we thought, and construction was delayed and all that. So then all of a sudden, I'm not a good guy. I'm the bad guy.
Well, yeah, contractors, I think they get the worst end of the deal. The architect gets to look like the big hero coming up with the fun, creative ideas, and the contractor's the one that has to say, okay, if you want that, it's going to cost you this much. And if you want to change that now after we've already ordered something, it's going to cost you more. And they come in typically at the end of the project. And so all of these things kind of stack up that there is, you're right, there is this animosity towards contractors. But what I found is that a great contractor and maintaining a great relationship with a great contractor really will benefit you and ultimately, I think, make you a better architect.
Oh, absolutely. And I think a great relationship with a contractor is worth its weight in gold. I think one of the reasons why architects have animosity from contractors, or from, let's say, good contractors, because there's obviously bad contractors out there, is sometimes architects just want something built and they don't want to deal with all the minutia. But in order for the contractor to build it, they need to get the information from the architect. So I think the architect gets a little annoyed sometimes. They just want to be like, contractor, just go build it. And the contractor comes back like, a nagging, nagging somebody, coming back saying, well, I can't just build it. I need some information from you. I think that's where some of this animosity comes from.
Yes.
Because, we don't always have everything, we don't always issue a complete set of drawings as much as we like to think we do. There's oftentimes, missing information in there. But the contractors they do an incredible amount of work. And, when I started doing the design build, even after doing architecture for a number of years, once you step on the other side of it, you realize like, wow, contractors really do a lot of work, and they got to handle, everything from the big picture down to the smallest details of, hinges and screws in the hinges, that kind of stuff.
Yes. Both the architect and the contractor play this very critical role in a building project. And contractors are the ones, they have to put together these physical pieces of this puzzle that bring the architect's vision to life. I find it strange that there are a lot of architect friends that I have that they do treat the contractor as a bit of a hired hand and almost look down on them. And as I like to remind them, the contractor's probably making more money than you.
Exactly.
The contractor has accepted more responsibility and liability than you, and the contractor is getting more involved in the outcome of the final built thing than you. So I think we all benefit from really understanding how to work better with contractors.
Absolutely, and as a result, we become better architects. As a result of that. Okay, so our top 5 things. Number 1, contractors are building professionals too. What do we mean by that?
Well, they're part of the design team. They shouldn't be adversaries. They're really part of a good project team. And so to have a great contractor really changes the outcome of the project. It makes for a better project. So don't view the contractor as this hired hand, this hired gun, but rather as a building professional who brings their experience to the project just like everybody else.
Yeah, I think that's a good one too. And just the technical expertise of a contractor aside, just how, we treat somebody. We've talked about this on other podcasts, just a simple how we treat, how we treat the contractor, how we greet them, how we talk to them. Nobody wants to feel like they're being talked down to. Nobody wants to feel like an indentured servant, as you've made clear to me a few times. But nobody wants to do that. So I think just that sort of initial view of how we view the contractor in our mind, that's going to come through, and that's going to affect the entire relationship.
Some of the best experiences I've had in architecture in my career have been me and the contractor huddled over a notepad figuring out a detail that was better than what I designed in the first place, where together we really truly collaboration, because especially in dealing with existing buildings, you open up a wall and what's that drain pipe doing there that we didn't anticipate, and let's figure out some way to deal with it.
Yeah, I enjoyed that in the residential world. Residential and commercial, they're really opposite worlds. They're different skill sets, different types of contractors. But residentially speaking, oftentimes we wouldn't have a complete set of drawings in the sense that, all the details wouldn't be thought out. We'd have a building, a builder's set. We'd have more than a builder's set. We'd get a permit and everything, but we wouldn't get to all the details. So a lot of that stuff got worked out in the field. And when I was, working with another architect learning all this stuff, I used to love those job meetings. They'd be like 3 hours, and we'd walk around the job site and trying to figure out, what's the best way to conceal, the door hanger or the door slide or whatever it was. And the contractor's input is invaluable in that, because they have the experience. They have the experience to basically take what's in our brain, and make it real in the world.
Which, by the way, this is probably a good time to tie this back to our AIA contracts and remind those of you that are about to take the architect's registration exam that architects can't dictate the methods that the contractor uses to build it. Right? There's a very specific line that we can certainly design it and we detail it, but we can't dictate them their sequence or order of how they build it.
Right, that's exactly it. And I think if we accept that they are building professionals too, if we go into this, they're on our team rather than an adversary, it's going to make everything go easier, including just like what you're saying is the collaboration. That's what we want from the contractor. We want collaboration. Like in any business relationship, if we start off on a good foot at the beginning, it's going to make us it's going to make a smoother project.
Absolutely. The last thing to mention about this as contractors, as building professionals, contractors are not responsible for making sure that your design complies with the building code, right? That's the architect's responsibility. But haven't we all been there where the contractor is the first to speak up and say, actually the code won't let you do that? I don't know if I've experienced that. I don't know if you have.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. I've seen that where we would throw around ideas, we'd throw something around and they'd be like, no, that's, or the building official's not going to let that. He's not going to let that fly, Right. And it might be something minor. But they're the ones on the front lines. The contractors are the one in the trenches, and they are building professionals. And I think they want to be, respected and treated as such. And, I can tell you, when a contractor is on a job, and oftentimes they have multiple jobs going at one time, their mind is on this stuff 24/7, even though sometimes from the architect's standpoint, it might feel like it's not, but it's one of those things that you just don't turn it off at the end of the day. I don't think. I couldn't when I was doing it. Because you're always thinking about the schedule, right? You're always thinking about what sub's going to come in, and then, my plumber's canceling tomorrow, so now that sets everything back, and now I got to juggle this. There's just so much to juggle. It's crazy.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, number 2, contractors need information. What do we mean by this one?
Well, as I like to tell, especially young architects, communicate and then communicate more, and then if that you feel that's not enough, over-communicate. I'd rather have the contractor say, yeah, I get it.
Right.
Dude, enough, than really not know what we're talking about. The key to any successful architect-contractor relationship is this open, honest communication. And so as soon as you switch from this, the contractor is the adversary trying to rip off my client, to the contractor is part of the design team, and therefore deserves mutual respect and deserves communication just like we want and expect back from them. So just as the contractor takes efforts and strides to keep the design team informed of things throughout the construction process, so too does the architect. And so we really need to be open to this idea of communicating back and forth. No drawing set is perfect. And if you think it is, you're nuts, right? And sometimes contractors find these conflicts. And sometimes they have questions about it. And to me, questions are good. I like getting questions from a contractor, especially early in the process, because they show their interest and their desire to make things beautiful and make them correctly.
Well, it also shows that they've actually looked at the project and the drawings. If you give a contractor a set of questions and then you have a meeting, or a set of documents and you have a meeting and they don't really have that many questions, it's like, well, did you look at the project? Because if you did, you would have questions. Right. But I would like to mention, I agree with you, the communicate and then over communicate, but don't confuse that with micromanaging. You can't micromanage a contractor.
Oh yeah, well, everybody hates that, I think.
I thought you liked that.
No, everybody.
I thought you liked when I
universally. It's terrible. But to me, by the way, this is a great. I talk to lots of candidates. I talk to usually about 4 candidates a day, because we have these free 15-minute calls, which I guess I'm plugging now. But
oh yeah, nice plug.
Just yesterday, a woman called, and she failed CDS. She doesn't know why. She just got our study guides, and she's going to start using those. Which is, I didn't want to say this, but that's already half the battle right there. But I said, okay, I'm gonna test you. What's the age-old question? Contractor sees a detail at 3 inches equals a foot that says one thing, sees a floor plan at 1/4 inch that says another, and then sees a spec that says something else. Which one takes precedence? And as we outlined in a giant flashing red box in our study guide, the drawings and the specs are complementary, and it's really an opportunity for the contractor to then send a request for information, RFI, to say, okay, which did you mean? Her answer was, well, I think the specs. And it's a common mistake.
Very common. I mean, I don't know where we sort of learned that along our way in architecture school or whatever, but it's very common. For whatever reason, a lot of people think that specs overrule the drawings.
Because they're more detailed or something. I think that's the thinking.
Well, I think that they think that spec writers aren't human. I don't know what it is, actually.
Well, they're not, but that's another podcast.
Yeah, so and part of that is just understanding how the entire process works, understanding how the role of the contractor fits in, and I think this will fit into a couple other points that we have here in a minute.
The last thing I want to say about communication and contractors needing information is, schedule regular site visits and then honor the time of those visits. I had a boss in I probably shouldn't say the town, because then people could figure out who it was, but I had a boss who I loved dearly, but we would constantly be late for a weekly job site visit.
Oh, that's annoying.
And I would see the contractor, he'd try to be cool about it, like, oh, it's no big deal. But I could tell it bothered him. But my boss, who normally was a punctual sweetheart with everybody else, he was like, screw him. He can wait.
Interesting, which goes back to our point number one, at the beginning, contractors are building professionals, true, and, too, and treat them with respect and all that. Obviously, there was a lack of respect there, right?
Yeah, so I now granted, sometimes you're going to remote sites, sometimes there's traffic, all that's understandable, but generally I like to, I'm on time for contractors like I am with everybody else. The other thing I learned, especially working in San Francisco all those years, is don't schedule a contractor meeting at 6 p.m. because they start at 7 and they want to be done by 3 or 4, and then they have paperwork to do at home at night. So 6 p.m. they're yawning, and it's kind of it shows that you don't really understand the context that they're working in by scheduling late evening meetings.
Yeah, those never work. Well, not even for the contract. They just don't work for me. I'm yawning at that time.
Well, yeah.
But to your point, respecting the time of the contractor. But as I said, I've been on the other side of the table for 3 years. Contractors, and we're talking the general contractor, they're not just at the job site twiddling their thumbs when they're there. They got stuff to do. They got people to meet. I mean, showing up on time is dependent, because then they might have another meeting right after yours. They might have 3 more of their subcontractors coming right after yours. So they're extremely busy.
Exactly.
Okay, number 3, contractors have specific responsibilities. What do we mean with this one?
Well, really, we want to just remember that just as the architect has duties and roles and responsibilities, so too does the contractor, and you need to trust those. So, this really gets into the under 5.0, the construction evaluation division, or under 4.0, the construction documents and services, CDS division. But the architect has a ton of responsibilities during construction. We approve change orders, we review and approve applications for payment, we review shop drawings and have to do it in a timely manner. We also have to make sure the design complies with the building code. There's major things that we do working with the contractor very closely, such as we have to certify the date of substantial completion. We have to approve the notice of final completion and the final application for payment. There's a whole slew of things that we have to do that don't exist in a vacuum that work with the contractor. And then the contractor has their responsibilities. They establish the means and methods for achieving the design that you design in the contract documents. They have to pay their subs and file their release of liens. They have to manage the inspection process. They have to submit their own requests for information, RFIs. They produce the punch list, right, and the schedule of values and all these other things. So we're working much more closely than I think a lot of architects even realize. And if you're studying for the exam, this might be why you're having trouble with that CDS or CE division.
Yeah, you really have to know the A201 general conditions where a lot of this stuff is laid out, because that relationship is so critical. And one thing you mentioned there that probably most of us don't realize, and I didn't until you start diving into these AIA documents, is the contractor is the one who's responsible for providing the punch list. As anybody who has been involved in this process knows, we as the architect do the punch list, and then we give it to the contractor. But per the AIA documents, per the ARE exam, who's producing the punch list? It's the contractor. So, those little things are important, and we're aware of those things.
I definitely got that question wrong on the ARE because I tell this story a lot to the candidates when I talk to them. My first two bosses just did the punch list, and I just assumed that the architect did the punch list because that's what I'd been doing. And it wasn't until I was studying for the California Supplemental, believe it or not, that I learned. And I almost thought it was a typo when I saw it in the general conditions.
Right. Well, another example is reviewing shop drawings. And again, this whole process, these responsibilities are laid out in the A201 general conditions. And it's important for us to understand them so we know what our role is, and we also know what the contractor's role is, and we know what to expect from the contractor. Another one is reviewing shop drawings. Now, I remember, 20 years ago working in Boston, we did a lot of shop drawings for some a lot of interior work we're doing. And the general would always send me the shop drawings, and he would just get them from his subs and just send them to me. He would never open them. He would never do anything. We had our sort of system, and we would just check them and send them back. It's just the way we did it. But that's not the way it's supposed to be done per the A201. The subs send them to the general contractor. The general contractor reviews them and then sends them to us. So we're not the first person to review them, and then we send them back.
Yeah, well, how many times this happened to me, especially on cabinetry? It was clear the contractor didn't open the shop drawings, sends the drawings, they were totally wrong. Right. And normally, without getting mad, it's like, hey, didn't you look at these? You were supposed to communicate all this and that to the cabinet person. And it was clear that he hadn't looked at them at all.
And technically, we're not even supposed to review them for dimensions. I think we're supposed to just, confirm they conform to the design intent. Really, they conform to the working drawings. The contractor is the one who's supposed to be, doing all of this. So that's something that I think does differ a little bit in the real world, because I know when I've checked shop drawings in the past, I'm going through dimensions. I'm looking at all this stuff because I want to make sure it's right. I want to make sure that cabinetry is right, whatever it is. But ultimately, it's the contractor who's supposed to be checking that.
I think we all check dimensions, if only out of just morbid curiosity. But I think architects checking dimensions on shop drawings, which technically they're not required to do, is the same as a contractor pointing out that doesn't meet building code, even though they're not required to do it. It's professionals who take their work seriously. They check out everything.
Yeah, and I think that's all part of the team effort, and if we realize that we're all on the same team here, we're going to essentially help each other out. We're all professionals, and there's certain things, especially if I have a good relationship with a general contractor, if there's things I can do to make their job easier, even though I might not be required to do it, I will do it, right? I'll go a little above and beyond to make his job easier, whatever that might be.
Sure. I a few years ago, this is when I was in Palm Springs. I was working with a contractor, and there was a tile guy that I met that I really liked, and had a great experience with him on a job, a tile sub. And I was pushing this contractor to use this tile sub, and he made the exact same face that I make when a client says to me, "There's a contractor who lives across the street who's a buddy of ours that could do the." It's the exact same. And I realized I was doing to the contractor what clients do to me, and I'm saying, well, I don't know anything about this person. I don't know if they can do this type of job. I've never seen their work.
Right.
And I realized I probably shouldn't do that.
Right. And still under our contractors have specific responsibilities. Item 3, you touched on this earlier, but the contractors' main goal during construction, they do a lot of stuff, as we know, but their main goal is just build per the contract documents. That's their main goal. And our main job is to visit the job site and then just determine whether the work that the contractor is doing in the field conforms to the contract documents, and let the owner know. So if it doesn't, we let the owner know. If it does, we let the owner know. Those are the breakdown of the two main jobs that each of us, are essentially doing. So just understanding that, will make for a smoother process. Anything else on step 3 you want to, or item 3 you want to say, Eric?
Just these responsibilities are really outlined in the AIA documents. They're very specific in describing the documentation that is provided by the contractor, the responsibilities of the architect to that documentation, and this is a good opportunity that if you're studying for these exams now, these responsibilities are really key to passing those divisions.
They are, and this is what I would be most concerned with understanding for purposes of the exam. The exam is not detached from the real world. It's very much based in the real world. With that said, and with a caveat, it may be different than the way we do things in our own office, or how our systems work. And so how do we prepare for it? We stick to the AIA contracts, the AIA documents. How it's laid out there, that's how we do it for purposes of the exam, even though it might be a little different than what we do in our own office. Number 4, contractors care about their portfolio too. What is this one about?
Yeah, this is. I don't think a lot of architects realize this, but the good contractors, they care about how the work photographs as well. They're going to use this work to attract new clients, just like you are. They're going to submit these in their proposals, just like you are. So let them be enthusiastic about the project. Great contractors take pride in their work. They want challenges too. I find this is a great way to gauge if this is the right contractor for the project. If I'm working on a project that's LEED Platinum or Passive House certified or net zero, right? Even if the contractor's never worked on it, that's okay as long as they're enthusiastic about it. If the contractor says to me, well, we've never done one of those before, but we've been dying to for the last 2 years. Okay, that is appealing to me. Or even if it's a project with some weird detail or curtain wall or cantilever or something, I'm looking for their enthusiasm too, because I'm nerdy and enthusiastic about it, and I want them to be, knowing that it's going to photograph well and look great in their portfolio.
Exactly. It's the can-do attitude, or it's, we've talked about that in terms of interviews, right? And applying for jobs and all of that stuff. We all want to work with enthusiastic people. And contractors are no exception. And it is great when you find great contractors. It makes our life so much easier. And it's a great relationship. And, they're a good referral source too, for future work.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I found is, I now say to the contractor on a great project, hey, you want to go in on the cost of the photos, getting it professionally shot? When we're doing marketing, we mention the contractor, because I realized, just as I hate when they don't mention the name of the architect, the contractor would probably be pretty upset if we didn't mention their name too. And because they're part of the team, and right, as we've already established, mention them in the marketing and the PR of the project, just like you would want to be.
Exactly. And we can't expect to work with them again. And again, that's why we like great contractors so much, because they get it, right? They get the process. They get working in the team environment. They get that we're all on the same team, and they help us, make happy clients, which is, we all want happy clients, the architect and the contractor. So, yeah. Anything else for 4?
Yeah, if you depending on where you are in the country or the type of projects you do, when I was in San Francisco, which was 20 years in San Francisco, I had a cadre or a stable of 5 contractors that I used for most of my projects. And really, it depended on where it was. If it was in the East Bay, there were 2 contractors that I always used in the East Bay. If it was in the South Bay, there were 2 contractors, and if it was in the city, there was always a couple. And I love that, because what I've discovered is, working with the same contractor over and over again, you start to develop a shorthand. You start to trust each other more. They start to speak in languages of, they know your taste. They know what kind of detail you're looking for. It just makes for a better project and makes me, I think, a better architect. So expect to work with these people again, knowing that you're going to build your portfolios together.
Alrighty, so far we've covered number 1, contractors are building professionals too. Number 2, contractors need information. Number 3, contractors have specific responsibilities. Number 4, contractors care about their portfolio too. And number 5, drum roll please, contractors are better business people than you, probably.
Yeah, aren't they? I mean, contractors and interior designers have taken on more responsibility, more liability, and they've reaped the benefits of such over the last 75 years of architectural practice. This is a long discussion that we've had about how architects' fees are shrinking, our responsibilities and our respect has been shrinking, and this is something I think we as a profession need to push back on. Contractors they understand the costs of running a business. Right, they understand cash flow much better than I think most architects do. And so when you're reviewing their applications for payment, remember it's a bit of a negotiation, right? Sometimes it's them just getting enough cash flow to order the next batch of materials. And so there is, as long as they're being fair and honest and direct, and not trying to rip off the client, the owner, then I'm willing to understand that and accept that. And, so if they charge us for paint that they haven't ordered yet, but they just frankly need the money so they can order the paint, then that makes sense.
It does, not per the AIA documents, but
no.
But that goes back to the trust and the relationship, and have we worked with them before and all that stuff. But I think this is actually probably the of all the 5 items, this is the one I think that we as architects least understand, and the reason is because we are such bad business people. I won't even say we're bad business people. We just have a lack of business knowledge. It's not taught in school. I know I've worked in offices that just were not run correctly. They just were not run efficiently. And a good contractor, their business is run very efficiently. They know their profit, they know their overhead, they know their insurance, they know all of those costs. And sometimes as architects, I think we lose sight of that. We're so eager to say yes all the time that I think sometimes we don't have, we don't think about the financial side of things. I know I've run into several instances of this and, cost myself lots of money on a few jobs because I was so eager to say yes and didn't understand the business side or the business implications.
Yeah, I mean, and architecture has this long tradition of us slaving away late into the night And just because you might be willing to spend hours working overtime for free, the contractor does not, and shouldn't. Don't expect them to, right? I find that they're much more pragmatic about the hours they keep, their work-life balance, and what it takes to get a job done, and without diminishing the quality of their work or their enthusiasm for the project.
And oftentimes, you'll see this with, with change orders, for example. And you first look at a change order and you think, why is this so much? But then you have a conversation with the contractor, and he or she walks you through, well, these are the costs, this is the breakdown. I mean, this is what it is. It's not, a change order is not just a contractor trying to rip an owner off. Oftentimes, or most of the times, they're legitimate, especially if it's a contractor we worked with or that we know. But they're business people. They're not going to do their change orders for free. They have to tack something on to do that, because it's more of their time to make whatever change this is.
I had a client change a toilet from, I forget the numbers, but let's say $1,000 toilet to an $1,100 toilet. Although that'd be a hell of a toilet for $1,100, but so in my mind, it would be a change order for $100 because it was $100 more for the toilet. But it turns out we went from a floor-mounted toilet to a wall-mounted toilet, and the change order was a lot.
Right.
And when I said to the contractor, "What the hell? It's $100 more," and he walked me through. No, you don't understand. We have to put blocking in the wall. Look at these instructions. I downloaded them from the website. Look at what we have to do this wall-mounted toilet. And it has this in-wall tank. It was crazy. It looked amazing, but it was crazy. And so, they charged appropriately. It was something that I, as the architect, would have just been I was so excited about using this newfangled wall-mounted toilet that I kind of overlooked all those issues.
Well, it's what's interesting about that is this is a classic example of, we just want to switch something. We don't always think it through. And when we have a good relationship with the contractor where we can talk about this stuff, just as you found out, you learned things about that toilet that you didn't know because they took the time to do the research. We didn't do that,
Yeah.
So, they spent the time to do it, and they're able to answer your questions, say, no, we got to block it out. We got to install this. We got to install that, because they downloaded and they looked at the information, which we didn't take the time to do,
No, they also had a little foresight too, because the in-wall tank, it fits between the stud cavity, was made of ABS. So that means a single nail could have totally ruined that toilet and kept it from working, essentially. So not only did they have to install this thing in the wall cavity and then add the blocking to support the toilet, but then had to be very mindful not to let a stray nail puncture the tank.
It's almost, if we had an item 6, I just thought about this right now, but a good contractor can make us look good, and a bad contractor can make us look bad.
Yes.
I think oftentimes they're doing a lot of stuff in the field, to make us look good, where they could make us look bad if they chose to, in the eyes of the client.
Absolutely.
And that's what you want in a relationship. You want somebody that's going to have your back. And I think a lot of times, and again, I did design build for 3 years. I got a peek of this building side of things, and I'm sure there's a lot of things that good contractors do to sort of, make us look good that they don't even tell us about. They just do it because they know, they honor the relationship.
Exactly.
And it's interesting, architects have this thing about, working overtime for free. I don't know with new laws and stuff if we're still doing that. We probably are somewhere. Somebody out there listening to this podcast is probably working overtime for free. But obviously the contractor's not, because they're business people. They know, it's not free. Time is not free.
No, and I think that's part of the downfall of the profession of architecture and why we've lost respect, credibility, and really a voice. And it's really the construction project manager which is a field that never really needed to exist 50 years ago, that has risen in the ranks as the people everybody looks to for the authority on how to get this project built.
Yeah, that's true. It's almost like the architect has been taken down a notch. I guess that's a topic for a whole nother other podcast. All right, let me review our top 5 again. So 1, contractors are building professionals. 2, number 2, contractors need information. Number 3, contractors have specific responsibilities. Number 4, contractors care about their portfolio too. And number 5, contractors are better business people than you, probably. Anything else we want to say about any of these 5, Eric?
No, but this really goes to show how the AIA contracts play a role in your relationship with the contractor. And so, what's fun about this podcast is that as you're studying for those divisions, or even just looking to improve your relationship with the contractor, these 5 things in mind will really, I think, frame that relationship.
They really will. The AIA contracts are super important for the exam. They're important legal documents in the relationship. But I think if we have a good understanding of them, we can also, tweak them in the real world, based on the relationship. But as long as we know sort of the basis and the foundation, we can adjust them a little bit, sort of, as per the relationships progresses, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Alrighty, I think that's going to wrap up this episode, working with contractors and the top 5 things you need to know. My name is David Doucette on behalf of Eric Corey Freed. This has been the ARE Podcast. We will see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening to the ARE Podcast. Be sure to visit architectexamprep.com and check out our other podcast episodes, video tips, and the ARE blog. Remember to plan, practice,